Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with David Finkelstein, CEO and co-founder at BDEX. And I'm really excited to be here. And it's great to see you, David. How have you been?
Likewise. Good. Can't believe another week has passed and we're back at it.
I know. It goes by so fast. And here we are. It's Thursday again.
Yep.
Nice. Well, David, are you ready to be inspired and motivated by a leader in the sales intelligent platform space?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So today we get to talk to Mona Akmal, the CEO of Falkon, who has spent over 2 decades building elegant solutions to technically hard problems. Mona's impressive track record includes scaling OneDrive and Office at Microsoft and leading product and technology organizations at Code.org and Amperity. Today, as the CEO of Falkon, she is revolutionizing the go-to-market strategies of several different companies, lots of companies with her intelligence platform. Her ability to build resourceful, kind, and output-driven teams has allowed her to scale Falkon and attract A-list investors, including some Greylocks included and Madura. But her success story is not just about business, and that's what I find most impressive about Mona. And reading about her, she's got a fascinating story as an immigrant. Mona's overcome lots of obstacles and, found her true voice. And, she really proves that anything is possible with hard work, perseverance, and the right mindset. So let's go ahead and welcome in this week's guest. Mona, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jessie. It's great to be here. Hi, David. Nice to see you.
Likewise. Great to have you on the show. So let's jump right into it, Mona. I'd really like to hear your story. What led you to Falkon, to building this, and tell us a little bit about how Falkon serves its customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So what led me to Falkon was boredom, actually, because I've pretty much done every other role in the tech industry. Jokes aside, it was predominantly because I felt that the ROI on data is incredibly poor right now. We've done a phenomenal job as the tech industry to enable companies to store a lot of data, collect a lot of data. But as far as using that data to run the business is concerned, we're still stuck in the dark ages. And that's the problem that we wanted to fix. And to me, the biggest potential for data really comes down to providing intelligence and automation to companies so that they can run efficiently. And that's essentially how Falkon helps its customers. So our mission really is to use all go-to-market data to infer from it intelligence that drives the business forward and to automate a lot of non-revenue generating activities for go-to-market teams so that you end up with a lean, mean go-to-market team that is able to drive durable and sustainable revenue for the business.
That's awesome. Actually, everybody talks about collecting data, right? And so everybody talks about how much data they're collecting, how they're collecting it. But a lot of times we talk to customers that aren't really using the data intelligently that they have, and they're not leveraging it, and they're not using it to grow their business. They're just, making a point to collect it because they know they need to do that. And so I'd love to hear about solutions that are helping people leverage data in ways that can help them grow their business rather than just collecting it for the sake of collecting it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. We see a lot of that, actually. But that's, one of the things that we concentrate on also is helping people that are collecting their data, right? Leverage that data, especially when you talk about first-party data. We always talk about the importance of collecting first-party data. It's the most reliable data that you could have, as opposed to third-party data. A lot of times you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who else has access to that data.
Yes.
And therefore, devaluing it, your first-party data is super valuable. And then it comes down to how do you use that data? How do you leverage it? And how can you grow your business with it or make money from it? And
Absolutely.
so I want to dive into that a lot more and find out more about how your company helps others do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the first thing I'll say is, one of the reasons why data is being collected but not being used is because business users speak French and data people speak Spanish, and they don't actually know how to talk to each other. And one of the reasons why I was so interested in starting Falcon specifically was because as a founder, I'm uniquely suited to bring these two sides together, because often business users have a difficult time expressing in terms that data people understand what the needs of the business are and the types of insights that they're looking for. They also have a difficult time understanding when their data engineering team comes to them and says, oh, yeah, we need to do a 9-month project. It's going to take 4 data engineers, 6 analysts. We need to buy these 7 tools. Let's get Snowflake, then let's get Looker, then let's get all this, like all these tools. And then maybe a year later, you'll be given you'll be shown to the promised land. Business users don't know how to challenge or understand what's actually being said and what will be delivered to them at the end of such a huge investment. On the other hand, I find that data people have unrealistic expectations of data. If it's not perfect and it's not 100% accurate down to the third decimal point, it's deemed useless. And in my mind, that's absolute nonsense, right? Because a lot of times you need data to be directionally accurate. I mean, have you met a human being and their intuition where they're 100% right with precision down to the third decimal point? Of course not, right? And so it's like somehow when we start talking about data, we have an expectation that is unrealistic, and unless it is perfect, it is useless. As an example, talking about the subject of how to use your CRM data, I've never met a customer who has said our CRM data is completely clean. Everyone is worried that their CRM data is extremely messy, and therefore they don't want to use it for higher forms of intelligence and operationalizing and automating some of the non-revenue generating activities of their reps. My question back to them is, great, if your CRM data is a heap of trash, delete it. No one deletes it. They don't even delete a field. Okay. So if it's useful enough to keep around, then it's useful enough to use, right? And if it's not useful, get rid of it. So this is where I think we have to challenge our own thinking and our relationship with data as business users and data users, which is directional accuracy is what we're looking for. So some of the things that we think about a lot on how you leverage your CRM data. CRMs make it extremely difficult to look at historical data because they were not built to be databases, right? They were built to be a book of business that is actually best suited to what's the current state of my accounts and my opportunities and my leads and contacts and so on. History is stored. If you have history turned on in your Salesforce or your HubSpot, history is being tracked, but it's extremely difficult to mine that historical data for trends. Like, how are our historical win rates changing over time? And how is our segment mix shifting over time? What industries are converting better now and have a faster deal velocity than industries compared to 2 quarters ago? How is the quality of our pipeline changing over time? What is the efficiency level of a rep? What is the trend line? How much effort is it taking us to book a first meeting? So all that sort of trend information is to me a gold mine that lives inside our CRMs, but most companies don't leverage even 5% of it. And sorry, but like using a little bit of it for lightweight revenue forecasting to me is not a good enough use of your historical trends, because looking at data as a snapshot only tells you a point in time story. And if you are an ongoing concern, which hopefully most businesses are, what's more important than any snapshot is how are you trending over time? And therefore, how do you improve and where do you improve? Another element that I feel is a misunderstood part of CRM data is uh, the objects that live inside our CRMs, right? The lead object versus the contact object versus the account object versus the opportunity object, and having activity data littered all over the place, right? It gives you a very incomplete picture of what's happening in any account at any given time. And so being able to unify all these touch points to be able to see at the account level all the interactions we've been having with this account, and equally importantly, what are all the interactions they've been having back with us, is going to help us optimize the customer journey from start to finish. And then the last part is CRMs are not suited right now, and I don't think the answer is to shove all this data in CRMs, but CRMs are currently not tied to product usage data. If you're a SaaS company and your book of business on from a sales and marketing standpoint lives in your CRM, but it is completely siloed away from how these accounts are actually using your product or service and how they're engaging with your customer success and your customer support teams, again, you have a very fractured view of how a particular account is engaging with your brand. Your account, your customers don't care that they talk to someone in sales or they talk to someone in customer support or they logged into your product to use your service. For them, they are interacting with your brand. But unfortunately for you, because you are not joining your CRM data with your product usage data, your customer support data, you're really only limited to seeing mostly sales data and a little bit of marketing data, which I think is a huge missed opportunity.
Wow, that there's so much there, Mona. For sure, I've run into, for example, in Salesforce, trying to run reports and trying to understand the historical trends, and it's virtually impossible to do. So it's amazing what you're saying. It's an absolute need, and to be able to tie that, obviously, along with the product user data is amazing. That's definitely, without a doubt, super important need. And I think to some effect, what you're saying is that, when you talk about data being an exact science, it's not all just, yes or no. There's a lot of, sort of in between. In some ways, what you're saying is it's data can be treated more like art, depending on what you're doing with it. It's not just it's here or it's not here. It can be there to some level. And if it's there to some level, there's so much you can do with it.
100% agree.
Absolutely. It reminds me of our conversation last week about qualitative data. And qualitative data, helps get to that gray, part where a lot of time the quantitative data is more black and white. So yeah, very interesting. And you're talking about activity data being, kind of fractured across multiple objects. So is that can't be black and white. That's got to be very gray. Because when I think of activity data, it could even be qualitative in some regards. So I'm curious, how do you handle that? How do you unpack that?
Yeah, I think that was one of the core reasons in why we wanted to build Falkon was, first and foremost, you need to have a unified data model where you are able to bring in activity data that is littered all over your CRM, and also supplement that with activity data that is not sales activity data or marketing activity data. It could be web activity data. It could be product activity data, and build a unified data model where account is the hero, right? And all activity is associated fundamentally at the account level, and you are able to deduplicate it, you are able to clean it up, you are able to unify, for instance, the concept of a user and the concept of a contact and the concept of a lead. Because think about it, right? If a company is prospecting me and I am already using a free version of their product, I exist as 3 potential objects in their system. Object number 1, I am a user in their user database. And with that user object, all my activity that I'm using their product for is captured there. But because that is in the product database, a sales rep or BDR or marketer almost never has access to it. The second place where I exist for their business is as a contact, because I showed up in the target account list and someone looked me up on Zoom Info, created a contact, and then started prospecting with me through outreach or sales loft or whatever, right? And then the third object where I exist is, let's say I don't respond to the BDR's outreach, but instead I go to that the website and I log in, and I don't log in, but I sort of ask for a demo request or request to talk to sales. Now I exist as a lead object as well. But I am one person. I am Mona. I'm not a lead. I'm not a contact. I'm not a user. I'm a person that is interacting with this brand, right? And so as an experience for me as the end customer, it's extremely annoying to me to have sales reps and BDRs and marketing teams reach out to me completely blind to how I'm using the product or service. It makes them look like idiots. And then on the other hand, from the company's perspective, they're operating in these silos where they're simply not being empowered. Why shouldn't a BDR be able to look at Mona's account usage, Mona's product usage quickly in Slack with 1 second? Like, give me a dossier on Mona because she just put in a demo request and I need to know how she's been using the product. That's why we built Falkon. And to me, the heart of Falkon is our unified data model. And then on top of it are the super high value use cases that let go to market teams leverage that data in an insightful way quickly without needing to do a lot of work.
I think that's a natural transition into the next topic too. How can GTM and sales teams drive revenue and ultimately win more deals?
Yeah. I mean, sales teams have always driven revenue, and that's why I love them and have such a tremendous amount of respect for them. But what's happening in the market right now with the economic slowdown and whatnot, and also honestly being overcapitalized because of the venture capital boondoggle that we all went on the last few years, the net effect of that is revenue teams are now being asked to optimize the entire revenue life cycle instead of just focusing on new business and logos at all costs, right? That was the mantra of 2021. Now every boardroom, the conversation is about net dollar retention. It's about CAC payback time period. So if it's taking you $50,000 to acquire a customer and your average contract value is $10,000, it's going to take you 5 years just to recover your customer acquisition cost. And if you compare that with the life cycle of your average customer, the industry standard for SaaS is 3.5 years. That means you're actually losing money. You are subsidizing beyond the point of being a sustainable business. By the way, this also correlates with the fact that companies that have been built in the last 50 years have significantly shorter durability. They are more like flash in the pan companies than the companies that were built 150 years ago. Much more durable because there was a focus on EBITDA, on profitability, on margin, right? And so I'm going to get off my soapbox in just 1 second. To me, what that means is modern revenue teams now have to change gears. Instead of saying, let's just hire a bunch of AEs and a bunch of BDRs and pipeline fixes all problems and, 5x pipeline and we'll get to our revenue quota. When someone says that to me, I get so angry because that means 4x of that pipeline just went to waste. That's an inefficient funnel. You should be ashamed if you need a 5x funnel in order to hit your revenue target. That is nonsense because every X in pipeline is driving your customer acquisition cost up dramatically, right? So what we are seeing is go-to-market teams really become intelligent and efficient throughout the life cycle. So when we are prospecting, let's only invest in programs where there is quantifiable evidence that they drive not just pipeline, but pipeline that actually converts. Instead of spraying and praying with our BDR teams and our outbound prospecting motions, let's actually focus on the 300 accounts that we really want to go after, which means now we have to put pressure on marketing to really dial in our ideal customer profile instead of sort of winging it like it's roughly in that direction, right? We need more precision. We can no longer say our ICP is the entire city of Seattle. We actually have to get down to the zip code level as far as ICP is concerned. Our win rates need to be more like 30 to 35% instead of the 20% that people have been okay with in the last 5 years, right? And most importantly, customer retention, to me, actually, customer success should report into CRO. I firmly believe the chief revenue officer should be responsible for all pipeline generation activity, pipeline generation goals, net revenue retention, and new business revenue. And net revenue retention is a proxy for land and expand, right? So are we going to protect our revenue? Will we get renewals or will we get downgrades? And are we going to be able to expand in accounts? Because increasingly what we're seeing is average contract value is diminishing. People don't want to write the $500,000 check anymore because we've all been burnt with bad purchases that were locked in. People want to land with a small deal and then aggressively expand. Guess what that's predicated on? Customer delight. Because people are not going to expand if they don't like your product. You can no longer lock them in these year-long cycles, which basically means, to me, a winning go-to-market team in the next 10 years is a customer-centric marketing go-to-market team, right? They care about the customer more than they care about their team silos, than they care about their commissions. And I actually think the commission structure has to change as well. So commissions really do need to be tied to renewals and usage and customer success metrics, not just how much revenue you booked in a given quarter.
Interesting. That would be like a whole cultural change. I had never thought about that.
Yeah, and it's there. You make some excellent points. I mean, the reality is that there's a lot of pressure on, especially on larger corporations these days. You know, there's been so much downsizing, and so there becomes more and more pressure on vendors of choice, how they choose those vendors, renewals, all of that, and so that comes down to that same team, right? It's the customer, being customer centric and making sure that you know, those customers are treated well, and that you know how to retain those customers as well in order to continue the life cycle. There's so much more pressure today going forward than you look two years back, but you could say 10 years back. The reality is it's ever before.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a good point too. It's like it's kind of the same thing. It takes us back to like business all the way back into time, right? Like just value the customer. It's really that easy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know you have a background at Microsoft, and it's kind of like something when you think about Microsoft for so many years, never had to worry about that, right?
Nope.
Nope. That's something they never had to worry about, it's and then now, business has changed. It's changed for Microsoft as well today, right? Big time. And so, there's so much more competition. There's so many more vendors. There's so much pressure, from a growth perspective. The economy doesn't help that either. But nevertheless, there's still, even without the economic changes, there's still a lot of vendor pressure that causes companies to have to, be a lot more customer centric. And there's so many of those companies that just it's too easy for them to bounce around. It's too easy for them to say, hey, your solution's great, but so is that guy's.
Completely. And Jesse, you mentioned that this is going to be a big cultural shift. I actually remember being at Microsoft for the 10 years that we went through a culture shift of not being customer centric and being very organizational. We would ship our company structure as opposed to ship what customers wanted. I think we've all seen the Microsoft org structure where you have like teams that are pointing guns at each other, right? And this actually reminds me, having lived through that experience, now when I talk to sales leaders and marketing leaders, I'm reminded of a very similar pattern, right? Which is more time is spent doing this than saying, no, we're one team. And like, it doesn't matter if it's an MQL or if it's not an MQL. What matters is it high quality pipeline? And did we generate it cost effectively? And I think it is going to be a hard transition, and a lot of revenue leaders will not survive it because they will not want to change and think more broadly. And that's where I think you have to have the pioneers who are going to lead the way and sort of redefine go to market, hopefully in the next few years here.
Yeah. And a lot of what we do at BDEX is around finding that target, like you said. I mean, it's our customers are mostly B2C, but it's really the same. It's no more, like you said, the spray and pray just is not effective anymore. There is so much pricing pressure in the consumer side of the business industry as well, that B2C companies really have to do a better job. They can't just say, oh, well, everybody on TikTok's our potential customer. Well, no, that's not really true. It used to be that they just advertise on Facebook. Okay, we'll advertise on Facebook. And that worked, to an extent, because yes, their customers were there, right? But it was like this much, and they're advertising to everybody. And it didn't matter because they weren't so concerned with what was, what's the CAC? Who cares? We're getting new customers. We're growing. We're growing at 1,000 users a day. Who cares?
Yep.
Now they need to care about that. It's much more. They're more focused on that, and so it's much more important for them to concentrate on what their acquisition costs are. And so that's a big part of what we do as well at our company.
Love it.
Just helping helping brands understand exactly where their customers are. Leveraging their first party data to do that, right? So let's take our first party data, let's see who is our customer, and let's build an audience of people that, look just like our best customers. And let's target this product to those people, and let's target this product to these people.
Yep.
Not everybody,
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely. And did you guys see we got a comment? It's actually from David Wellborn. He's CTO at BDEX. And he's asking, where does product orientation versus sales orientation figure into this?
So I actually, I'm a big believer. If you've read The Hard Thing About Hard Things, Horowitz talks about how there needs to be a tour of duty. So every person should do every job for a little bit. My biggest advice, I've grown up in product management and engineering. My advice to every product manager is go be a seller for at least 2 quarters before you ever think about being a product manager, because I actually think sales and product are like this, right? They both champion customer centricity. They both can only succeed if they are actually customer centric, but often these two teams are extremely far apart from each other in the traditional organizational structure. So to me, actually, I would say, instead of thinking of it as product orientation versus sales orientation, I would look at it as customer orientation, where your product is in service of your customers and your sales team is also in service of your customers, right? And so what that means is your product has to have a business sensibility to it, because customers need business value in order for your product to be useful. And sales needs to have a deep understanding of product value and product capabilities, because at the end of the day, that's what generates business value, right? So it's like, it is both in my mind. And I think the best way to do that is to do some very serious cross-pollination. I will throw in one other comment here. And I'm sure there will be people that disagree with me. I think all sellers should do their own demos. I don't believe in sales engineers, because in this day and age, if you don't know how to show your product, you are not fit to sell, because I don't trust you. How can you talk to me about the values of your product when you can't even demo it to me, right? Similarly, A product manager who does not sit in on sales calls should not be allowed to input anything into the product roadmap, because it's coming from their own personal point of view. And if they're not your target customer, their personal point of view doesn't matter.
Those are great points. Yeah, absolutely. Love that, actually. And I think that goes back to what you were talking about Falkon, right? I mean, being able to take that product user data and cross-reference it with the sales data is really, really important. And maybe that's where the art part of it comes in, because it's not an exact science, right?
Absolutely. So when I think of product user data, I guess I'm thinking of like all the things they're clicking in within the app, all the data they're giving us, whether it's email, different triggers. What do you think of, Mona, when you think of product user data?
Yeah, so this is another interesting one, right? Like product analytics companies and so on. There's a big fracture actually there as well. So you look at the amplitudes, the mix panels, the pendos, and all of that. And you also have your proprietary data that you collect about your customers. So interestingly, when you are instrumenting your product, deciding to collect data, typically those decisions are made by engineers who have little to no insight or requirements provided by business users on what they will actually want to do with the data. So unfortunately, most of this data gets collected in a format that makes it extremely difficult for even product managers to use, let alone a sales rep, right? My biggest objection with a lot of the companies that use tools like Tableau and Looker and whatnot to enable their sales teams and their go-to-market teams with product data is you should not have some freaking respect for your go-to-market team. They should not turn into data analysts in order to be able to use your product data. And you are not enabling them and empowering them. What they need is the soundbite version, right? What they need is almost like the equivalent of, if I was talking to you and I said, hey, Jesse, I'm about to hop on a call with this account. It's a big account for us. Can you give me sound bites on how they're using the product right now? What are their key activities? What value are they getting? And where are they at with their seat license usage? Like, are they at 10%, 50%, 90%? Is the account healthy? Is there a churn risk here? Has their usage of our product gone up or down in some meaningful way, right? And imagine the answer you would give back to me, which then preps me to have this call. That's the type of enablement that you need to do for revenue teams and go-to-market teams in order to be able to leverage product data. And unfortunately, we are extremely far away, because the data that exists for product usage in its raw form is so far away from this ideal end state that I have mentioned, that there are a lot of layers of transformation required to go there. And fortunately, we do that for our customers, because our customers, it goes to customer centricity. If our customer is a sales rep, is a BDR, is a marketing manager, we embrace the fact that they are not data analysts. They don't live in dashboards all day, and they shouldn't. In fact, if they are living in dashboards, we've probably failed. So how can we bring these insights to them as sound bites, as bite-sized nuggets of value in the tools that they are in already, like Outreach, like SalesLoft, like Salesforce, like HubSpot, like email and Slack? Federate that insight and make it more conversational, instead of, here are 7 charts, you figure out what they mean and then use them how you see fit.
Yeah, those are great points. Well, we've got 2 more topics and 10 more minutes. So I guess we'll just jump right into the third topic. But what have been some of the challenges of being a woman tech founder, and how have you overcome them, Mona?
Yeah, so I mean, I think honestly, as an analytical person, it's difficult for me to answer this question, because I've never lived my life as a man. I've only lived it as a woman. So I don't really have an A/B test comparison here. But in general, I would say there are a few things. One, as a woman, I am asked for evidence. And when I talk to my male founder counterparts, what I hear often is that they are asked about their vision. That also ties in with a large body of research that has been done, which is when women are getting promoted, or when women are being given money, or when women are even hiring. There's a lot more pressure to provide evidence that they have done it before successfully many times. And what that creates is a cold start problem, because you always have to start somewhere. And if people are innately not willing to bet on you because they are looking for evidence of having done that before, then you get stuck in this cycle, and you have to try a lot harder than the average white male in order to get one person to bet on you. Now, the good news is there are always people that are willing to do that, because they are not seeing a small brown woman, they are seeing a competent person. But I would say the big difference is, for me, I have to talk to 100 people to find 2 that are willing to do it. And perhaps for some other folks, they'd have to talk to 5 and be able to find 2, right? So it's just a numbers game in my mind. Second is, for any financial transactions, you just have to pay the woman tax. I just call it a 20% discount because I'm a woman. That generally shows up in when you're raising money, when you're negotiating salaries, if it's any transaction, you are going to have to pay for the fact that you are not the stereotypical definition of what they were looking for. And again, are these problems? Do they bother me? Of course they do, but I don't think that's the reason to leave the game or burn the building down, because we have to win, and we have to win at all costs. So if we have to pay a little bit extra and we have to work a lot harder, we'll do it. No problem.
Heck yeah, it's happening.
It's super interesting to me, actually, and being listening to your response and being a man that's never been a woman, right? And so looking at it from an analytical point of view, and not being able to A/B test it, just as you said, for me, the way I can A/B test something like that and kind of look at it backwards from your answers, from your responses, the A/B test that I have that's really similar is age. Because I've been an entrepreneur since I was literally out of college. And it's very different now that I'm 51 than it was when I was in my 20s. And so I feel like I had a lot of those same challenges in my 20s as an early entrepreneur. Everything that you described, not having the same level of respect because I didn't have years of experience, right? I may have known my stuff, right? Because I, had, a very technical background and whatever. But I had to prove myself just in similar ways. And same thing with money conversations. Well, he's just a kid, right? But now at 51, it's a lot easier for me to prove myself. And so it's a very similar situation, I think, and when I look at that from an analytical point of view, it's interesting.
Thank you for sharing. That's insightful.
Both of you. Thank you both for sharing. I think that's probably like the most important segment we may have ever had on Deconstructing Data. Personally, I think that just you both, I honor both of you for sharing your message, because it is very important for people to hear from intelligent thought leaders like you that, it's okay to be different. And we shouldn't judge people on their differences. So thank you for being human and not robotic on the Deconstructing Data podcast.
Of course.
But I think we would disappoint our audience if we didn't hear what favorite tools you have in your tech stack, Mona.
So I'm a Luddite. I actually still work predominantly out of email, and I'm gonna do a shameless plug. People are never. Oh my God, I'm gonna get judged for this. I love PowerPoint. I love it. I've used it for 25 years and I will never stop using it. Sorry. It's just how it is, because I can do everything Canva can do and Figma can do. And
oh my gosh.
I can do it all in PowerPoint. I know my team makes fun of me for this. But other than that, I think we are big fans of outreach. We are big fans of Orem. On our sales side, we use Falkon for Falkon internally. So we're big fans of our own tool, and we're the first people to try it out. I'm a big fan of Amplitude for collecting product usage data. We use it internally pretty aggressively. I love Slack, and I know people hate on Zoom, and a lot of people are ending their contracts with Zoom because it's expensive. But I think it continues to be one of the most reliable, the most reliable video tool. So we are big fans of Zoom. We are internally a Google shop. We love Snowflake. And we love Amazon Web Services. So those are that's our stack.
And I think I got most of it. So Mona Akmal's favorite tools in her tech stack include PowerPoint, Falcon, Amplitude, Slack, and Zoom. And I tagged them all. So if any of those companies are listening, that's an endorsement right there. So all right. Well, I guess that brings us to the conclusion of the show. We only have 3 minutes left. So thank you so much for getting through all 4 of those topics.
Of course. Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to spend time with you guys. Thank you so much for hosting.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for joining us. This was probably one of our best. So we get better every time, but appreciate you being on here with us.
Of course.
Absolutely. I agree, David, one of our best. And Mona, where can the audience reach you if they want to contact you?
Well, if you want the hot takes, you should connect with me on LinkedIn. I stir shit up on LinkedIn. I didn't realize that, but I do apparently. So just look me up, Mona Akmal, on LinkedIn. And my email is mona@falkon.ai. I'm pretty responsive.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And in closing, you can find the Deconstructing Data podcast on all major podcasts and YouTube and TikTok and LinkedIn and Twitter. Yes, we know that not all of our customers are on TikTok, but we do still have videos there. And believe it or not, David, there's a lot of people who are very interested in consumer data on TikTok. It always kind of shocks me.
I mean, we don't do any TikTok videos where we're falling off of anything or anything like that, or dancing. But
no, none of that. Maybe I think Warren, if Warren's listening, I think Warren would be great at creating some TikToks, and maybe DW as well. Yeah. But yeah, no, just the conversations from Deconstructing Data. They're everyday people who are out there using consumer data, using business data, and all these different tools. And as they're scrolling TikTok, we're giving them something to think about. That's not just, dancing and all those other things. And of course, we don't have thousands of views, but it's quality over quantity, right? So we're reaching some people, and you can tell from the engagement that they're actually watching it. But yeah, so if you're on TikTok, follow BDEX. We would love to hear what you think of those videos. And also simply go to BDEX.com and check out Omni IQ. Omni IQ, as David was telling us, it's easy. You just upload a CSV list of your first party customer data, and then you get free analytics. You get birth year, gender, household income on your first party customer data, and there's no credit card required. And if you like that, then of course you can upgrade to get more, but definitely worth checking out. And anything you would add on that, David?
No, yeah, it's all about learning about your customers, right? I mean, your first party data is the most important. Know who your customer is. And if you know who your customer is, then we can help you find more of them. So that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely. Well, we would love to hear from listeners. You can reach us at info@bdex.com. Share your qualitative data with us so we can make this better for you in the future. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Mona.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.